Hello, everybody. Welcome back to my channel. I'm Susan Lynn. I'm a psychic and a medium. And today you've tuned into one of my video series called Way Out Wednesdays. The acronym is WOW. And some of the videos are pretty wow. They're pretty out there. Like my last video was essentially, why would humans want to colonize Mars? And is it a red herring to get us to leave the earth? Or what exactly is going on there, right? So that was my last video, but I've also done videos on Sasquatch, ascension, you name it, soul contracts, just anything you can imagine. Today, we're going to be talking about exit points, meaning death, and also the energy of death, the energy of an ending and a beginning. So not necessarily all of this video will be about physical departing of this incarnation, but it's actually going to be when we experience a death of identity. So death has so many different energetic outcomes. But first, I want to talk about exit points. So, when I was growing up, it was just common for people to say, well, his number got punched. Her number was called. She was called home by the Lord. Whatever, it was her time. Now, that's fine. That's perfectly fine. But it's also a way that humans use to describe something they can't understand, which is perhaps an untimely death. If someone is of a ripe old age and they cross over in their sleep, I mean, that's considered the holy grail of crossing over. That's what we all wish for ourselves and our loved ones, is to live to an old age and cross over peacefully in our sleep. As you might know, that's not really very often is the case, is it? But what's really, really interesting and fascinating to me is that exit points, what I found in my work as a medium, as a psychic and a medium is someone can talk to the dead, is that there are multiple exit points for us. And these exit points can span years and years, which what gives? Why is that even possible? What would be the reasoning for this? How could we possibly have an exit point and then have 5 more years before the next exit point, maybe even longer? And the other question is, how do I even know this? Right? You might be wondering, well, all right, lady, how do you know these things? Well, let me tell you how it happened for me and my personal life. I have a friend of a friend who had a little diagnosis. It wasn't anything that any of us thought was significant. We certainly didn't think that it was going to be something that could be, the end. However, being a medium, I talk to dead people. And I had occasion to read for her, and I met her, at least one of her parents on the other side at the time. I'm not sure if they were both crossed or not. I'm not sure. But now I believe both, yes, now both parents are there. This is a friend of a friend of a friend. However, I read for her and I met her parents. Therefore, her parents knew me. They knew they could talk to me. They knew they could communicate with me. They knew that I was I would answer the phone. I would answer the mediumship phone when they called. So lo and behold, about a month or two after I hear from a friend of a friend that this person has this little diagnosis, didn't think anything of it, except for a while later, her parents appeared to me. Now, they didn't materialize in front of me. They materialized in my mind's eye, in my third eye, in my psychic eye, my clairvoyant eye, whatever you want to call that. So you would imagine for you, it might be like if you think of a loved one who's no longer here, you have a picture of them in your mind. That's what I see, is a picture of them in my mind. Same thing. In this picture, this woman's parents had their arms out and they weren't facing me. They were facing to the side. And I knew because they told me our daughter's coming home to us. We're so excited. So it's a loss for us, they leave behind, but it is very much a homecoming for those people that have already left the earth plane and are waiting for their loved ones to join them. Of course, they're not hastening this. They're not hurrying us. But when you're ready to cross over, it is definitely a party. It's a homecoming. So here they are with their arms out. And I said to them, I didn't think this was serious. I thought this was nothing to worry about. And at this point, they weren't talking to me. They were focused on their daughter. They were looking at her. They had their arms out in this, like, come and hug me, that kind of thing. Like, I can't wait for you to get here. Now, as a medium, as a psychic, this puts you in a little bit of a delicate position, because I certainly don't want to call the friend of a friend of a friend and say, hey, how's this person doing? I heard they had this diagnosis, but how are they doing? Well, for one reason, they know what I do for a living. And it's not going to take a rocket scientist to deduce that I've got some information that they're going to want to know. Susan, what did you get? What are you getting? What's going on? Well, if I tell that person, what are the odds that it's going to get back to someone that knows this woman? And I don't want that to happen. We don't want that to happen. If you're a budding psychic or even a psychic or a medium, I hope you understand that it's not ethical. And you're going to find out why in just a second. It's not ethical for me to go say, oh my gosh, are you doing okay? Or even call the person who's sick and say, are you doing okay? I've got this information that you might cross over. What? No, that's not ethical. Don't do that. And here's why. This was at least, I want to say, 5 years ago. And this woman is still walking around as healthy as the day is long. She's totally healthy. Now, if I would have said something to somebody and I didn't say it to anybody, I'm telling you, no one heard me say anything. I didn't divulge it to my closest friend, anybody, nobody. If I had done that, that information had gotten back to her, that would have caused her real distress and a panic, and all for nothing. Now, why didn't she cross? Her parents, whom you would think, being on the other side, have a little bit of a head start on the information. You would think they would know. You would think they would know the future. They're seeing it all play out in front of us. Yet she didn't cross. Now we have exit points. She had an exit point. She decided not to take it. Think of it as a freeway where you're driving down the freeway and you're too happy listening to good music and you missed the exit. Or you're driving down the freeway thinking about what you're going to do next year. Or perhaps beginning something new, a new career, a new hobby. Or perhaps you're just thinking about something else and you just never would occur to you to exit. Now, given this situation, if this person had been confronted with this illness, which, as I say, was not a big deal. It was certainly a diagnosis. It certainly required some treatment. I guess, theoretically speaking, now that I know this information, it could have been a bigger problem, but she took it in stride. And this woman has done a fair amount of work, spiritual work. So she was pretty happy, pretty content. I would say not 100%, because I don't think anybody's 100%. Maybe she was having some trouble in her relationship. Maybe she was having some trouble with her family. But otherwise, those things were not enough that she was depressed. Those things were not enough that she was sick and tired of living her life. She was still excited about her life. She was still excited about doing things. So she just didn't choose that exit. Now, that is certainly an oversimplification, because you may be saying, and I know I can say the same thing, that I've lost people that were excited for their life, and yet they're no longer here. So then we would talk about choice. Obviously, this woman, had a choice, whether she could stay or go. And a lot of near-death survivors or near-death experiencers say the same thing. When they came back, some of them said, I didn't have a choice. I had to come back. Some of them say, I had a choice. I could choose, but I chose to come back. Is some choice here. It's not quite as final as we might think. And I think it's fascinating that 5 years later, this woman is still going. No problems, no health problems, nothing. So understand that we have multiple exit points. And some of those times we get to choose. Other times we don't get to choose. Other times that is That's your exit point, and you're going to go. That's something that humans, living humans, the humans left behind, don't really have a good way of explaining. I can't explain to you why this person left at this time in a human way that a human would understand. However, if you step way back, if you can be in an observer mode for a moment, then you can see that we have soul contracts. And a book I often recommend is Journey of Souls by Michael Newton. Journey of Souls by Michael Newton. Michael Newton was a PhD hypnotist, and he hypnotized people and he regressed them to help them with childhood issues. And he accidentally regressed someone a little too far. And that person ended up in the space between incarnations, in the space where we plan our life. It's fascinating. You can also learn about this from a lot of near-death experiencers. We'll talk about how, well, I went up there and I learned why I'm supposed to be here. I learned the role, the lesson, whatever it is you want to call it, that I'm playing with my son, my daughter, my wife, my husband, my mother, whatever. So we have this period in between our incarnations where we're planning that next life. And we're saying to someone, another soul, hey, you are going to be my husband, if you agree. You're going to come down and you're going to be just amazing. You're going to be the best, the love of my life. Yet you're going to drop dead at 45 of a heart attack, because I want to learn and experience loss. I want to experience tragic loss of my soulmate, and at a young age. That's something that I think my soul could grow and benefit from. Now, if I told you that as a human, you probably take a swing at me, and I don't blame you. I don't blame you. Absolutely. As a human, that pisses us off. I would never plan to lose my soulmate. Okay, well, I said you have to be an observer. You have to step outside of the energy so that you can understand this. I've had a lot of loss in my life. I lost my mother at 7. Why would I do that? Why would I sign up to lose my mother at 7? Well, because I wanted to know about abandonment. I wanted to know about survival. I wanted to know about self-love. And believe me, I got those lessons. Now, how do I know those are the lessons I was supposed to get? Because my mom died when I was 7. Because I've done the work. Because I've done the regression. I've regressed back. I've talked to my mother in spirit. I've talked to my spirit guides. I've gone through my Akashic records. I've done the work to understand why I would choose these things, so that I can understand what I was trying to learn or experience in this lifetime. So all of these tools are there for you. You can get an Akashic records reading. You can get a regression. You can get a psychic reading, a mediumship reading. You can get all these things. And then you can start to put the pieces together of this incarnation and start learning and understanding what your soul came here during this incarnation to learn. So it's fascinating that I've seen this in many of my clients as well. They just passed up the exit point. They just passed it up and they're still living today. Or their spouse passed up the exit point. You know, again, it's back into this soul contract. If your spouse is here to teach you a lesson, and that lesson is to stand up for yourself, is to have stand in your own power, is to have boundaries, is to have self-love. So then that means your spouse is going to be a son of a gun, right? Because that's the kind of person you're going to need in your life to teach you these things. Or at least this is how, the way I've seen it, they don't give you a beautiful spouse who's amazing to teach you how to love yourself, because you're just going to take it for granted. You're not going to learn anything. You're just going to take it for granted that I'm lovable because this person loves me. Or if you don't love yourself, even if this person loves you, you're not going to learn to love yourself based on this person loving you so much. The lesson is not quite as stark. It's not quite as clear. If you have somebody that's really pushing all your buttons and pinning you down and stomping on your energy and disrespecting you, You're either going to go through your whole life as a doormat, or you're going to stand up and say, I'm worth more than this. I respect and love myself. But in some of these situations, these spouses were supposed to cross over and didn't, because they elected to stick around and participate in the soul lesson longer because their mate wasn't getting the lesson. They didn't want to take the exit point. They wanted to stay in the game to teach this person their soul lesson that they came here to learn. There's many reasons. I don't have all the answers. I am not God, but I am telling you what I know for sure is there's multiple exit points, and there's lots of reasons for them. There's also lots of reasons for just crossing over and not having a choice. It's complicated. It's multi-layered. And I don't think any of us are going to get the entire set of answers to these questions. But I do think that these answers to some of these questions could give you a better understanding and could maybe help expand your own understanding and knowledge of our human trajectory during our incarnation. So let's talk about death. It's really interesting to me. So the death card in the tarot does not look like this. This is a different type of tarot, but this death card is fascinating because there is a baby. There's a baby in an egg with a snake with skulls. And this tarot card says death and rebirth. Death there, rebirth there. So it is fascinating that death actually has the same energy as rebirth. And if you were to get the tarot card death, it doesn't always mean death. It means renew. It means to begin again. It means to perhaps the death of a personality, the death of you, of your identity, the death of your identity as this type of career or this type of person. It's the death of me being a doormat, not going to be a doormat anymore. I found my true worth. I love myself. I value myself. Therefore, you go through a death of that identity. And certainly those people around you say, my gosh, you've changed. You're not the same person anymore. And if they're getting a benefit from you being a doormat, they're going to say that you're a terrible person now and that you're selfish and all of these things. That is certainly a departure from your old personality and a death and a rebirth. Retiring is often a death and rebirth. When you retire, you have a identity death. You're asked to rebirth a new identity. If you don't, if you hold on to that identity of who you were all those years when you were working, it can really cause depression, anxiety, all types of terrible coping or not so good coping mechanisms once you retire, because your identity is gone. Your identity died. You're no longer that person you were at work. Who are you? Who am I? What am I going to do? That's a complete death of that identity. And without rebirthing yourself into a new identity, that can be really problematic. So think about that as well as you approach retirement, or perhaps you're in retirement and you're feeling stuck and you're feeling lost. Create a new identity for yourself. Create a new identity for yourself. If you're the kind of person that needs to have a routine, get up and have a routine. Put gardening, the gym, volunteer work, classes. Rebuild yourself a new identity as a retired person who does these things. You'll find the whole process much easier. But let's just say that you're just experiencing a rebirth simply because you've done a lot of soul work. And now all of that work is paying off in the sense that your vibration is a bit higher, and now new opportunities are available to you because your vibration is higher. Opportunities you never thought would be available to you are now available to you. Job opportunities, money opportunities, friend opportunities, relationship opportunities, living type of opportunities where you live, physical living location opportunities. And that can be very jarring because wait a minute, this isn't me. What do you mean that I can get this job? What do you mean you're offering me this job? What do you mean that you have a friend that would rent or sell their place for cheap? None of this feels normal. Perhaps your life has been a struggle, but now everything's coming to you easily. Sometimes we literally go back into the struggle because we cannot understand or accept the new identity. So having a new identity, death, the energy death, is a very challenging thing to go through. Much more challenging than I think we think it is. The spirit guides are saying it's not unlike winning the lottery. Overnight, your identity has changed. Oh, your name may or may not be the same, depending on if you go in the witness protection program, but you are the same person, but now you're not the same person because you can afford things you never thought you could. Because now maybe perhaps your friends and family are interacting with you in a way that they've never done before. It's very hard to adopt that new identity. And for that reason, I believe a lot of people who win the lottery, who win millions of dollars, tend to lose it all because they don't embrace the new identity. They simply act like they are in their current or their past identity, but with a whole lot more money that they don't know how to manage or that they feel guilt around. So they give it away. Stepping into the new identity, the rebirth, the death and the rebirth, stepping into the new identity will allow you to grow, to expand. Perhaps my friend's friend decided to step into a new identity when she went past that exit point. Maybe she decided, I want to go ahead and be around another 5 or 10 years because I really have some more work to do. I want to figure this out with this relationship that I'm having. I don't want to cross over right now, having not figured out this thorny issue. I want to really figure it out before I cross over. Now, that's not available to everybody. Obviously, it's not available to everybody. And I understand if you've lost someone, it's hard to understand this concept. How come she got a second chance and my loved one didn't? It really comes down to your loved one didn't sign up for a second chance. And I know, again, that's hard to hear. But as someone who's lost a lot of people, and not just my mother, I have to accept it. Don't we have to accept it? They're no longer here. We have to accept it. I just have to accept that they made those decisions. That's out of my control, completely out of my control. It's not my fault. It's not something I could stop or change. Therefore, it's out of my control. And I just have to accept it for whatever the reason and just let it go. So hopefully this was intriguing, interesting, thought-provoking about exit points. You're asking, how do I know if I have multiple exit points? Well, they don't really tell us that. It depends on how neutral you can be. If you're triggered about this subject, then you're not going to handle this information very well. There really are people who had a near-death experience that came back knowing that their child, who maybe at this time of this near-death experience was 10, knowing that their child was going to die at 18. Imagine being a mother and knowing every year that goes by that you're 1 year closer to your child's death. Imagine thinking, how can I keep that child safe? How can I stop this? How can I live without being depressed? Yet this woman did it. She stayed as carefully as she could in her own energy, never breathed a word to it to anybody. And when her child's birthday came, his 18th birthday came, she thought she was in the clear. Or perhaps it was his 18th birthday. Because I think her premonition or her knowledge was that he would die on or just before his 18th birthday. But his 18th birthday came, nothing happened. So she thought, oh, well, maybe something's changed. Maybe it's not going to happen. It did happen. So here she is. He's gone. She knew he was going to go. It happened. Now, how did she handle that? It's not an easy thing to have foreknowledge of. It's just not. It's It's difficult for humans. However, some humans can handle that information. So for yourself, I had a psychic that I trust just point blank ask me, when are you planning on dying? And you want to know what? A year, an age came out of my mouth. And she said, oh, okay. And it went on about whatever she was telling me. So now I'm living with this knowledge that I might know the age at which I'm going to cross. It's scary and interesting and weird all at the same time. This is also what happens when you're a psychic. You know things you can't tell people because they don't need to know, because I'm not God. I'm not God. I'm not going to tell someone your husband's going to die, you're going to die, your husband's going to kill you. I'm not going to tell anybody that stuff. I'm not God. Plus, 9 times out of 10, it's energy. It's energy. The energy is your husband's going to kill you because in a past life, he killed you. So in this life, he's going to kill you. Well, maybe in a past life, he did kill you. But in this life, the energy is he's going to kill you, but he could kill your reputation. He could kill your joy. He could kill your happiness. He could kill your peace. He could kill your sanity, or he could physically kill you. But all of those things are the same energy. Here's death. Death is the same energy. Is it physical? Is it a character death? Is it an identity death? So these things are like the great mysteries, right? That's why I don't feel like it's ethical to tell someone some of these things. Now, if I have enough experience doing this work, that I know that there's physical danger, that would be an energy that I feel. And I would tell that person, I have to tell you, I feel physical danger for you when you're around this person. And at that point, they might say, yes, this person has attacked me. This person has threatened me. This person has beat me up, whatever. So now I have validation. So now I can go in and say, your spirit guides are suggesting that you're physically not safe and that you really should take yourself out of that situation. Isn't that more helpful than your spouse is going to kill you? Because that spouse has free will. That spouse, that boyfriend, that girlfriend, they have free will. They may kill your car. They may total your car, total anything, kill anything, but not you. It's just like exit points. This is energy. And saying that energy is hard and fast, that it's just like my hand, would be wrong, because energy can manifest in any number of ways. That's why when we say, maybe I'm going to die on the date that came out of my mouth, or maybe I'll choose to pass that up. Maybe that's the last exit date. Maybe that's the actual last exit that I can take. And I'll have multiple exit dates before then. And an exit date can be precipitated by a terrible illness where you're just exhausted. I mean, you lost the will to live. You lost the will to live. Dates come to you and you've lost the will to live. You just might take it because you're exhausted from the illness. You're exhausted from the depression. You're exhausted from the hard life that you have. So that's why you might take an exit date before your final exit date. Let me know if you have any questions. Let me know if this makes any sense to you. I really want to hear your feedback. Have you had a near-death experience? Did you experience something like this? I think the majority of us can say, there was a time when I thought I was going to die, but the car missed me. The action didn't happen, but I was sure that I was going to die. Was that an exit date that you missed? Perhaps it was. Let me know in the comments. Thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you so much for your support of my channel. If you like this kind of content, do me a favor and hit the subscribe button. If you hit the bell notification on there, then you'll know when it's Wednesday, because I'll have a Way Out Wednesday. Thanks so much, everybody. Take really, really good care of yourselves.